Hello to all the viewers watching, and welcome back to another video. Now, PewDiePie is not in a very good situation right now, and the sub gap is very small, and if by the time this goes out it's already overtaken, then I'm sorry I haven't been able to get this out earlier. But in this episode, I'm going to be trying to say subscribe to PewDiePie as much as I can, and hopefully that ends up going well. So once I just do that, go there and go here, we shall begin. So subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. We're actually having some technical difficulties, so I'll be back in a second. Fucking internet. I'm recording a video, so that's why I'm doing this stuff. And if I'm very loud, then sorry. Come on, man. Okay, there we go. Now we just have to go over here, plug you into there. Okay, now we get you into there. And now we can officially begin our devotion to our Lord and Savior, PewDiePie. So, as I was saying earlier, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Sorry about the loudness, my parents are arguing. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 fuck it. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 actually no, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 oh you son of a bitch, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 son of a bitch, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 shut the fuck up. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to Putrefy, subscribe to PewDiePie, Otto van Deutsch, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. That's not where that goes. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 no bollocks, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh fuck, I'm tired. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Mum, are you subscribed to PewDiePie? Can you go do that real quick? Can you also do that too, Dad? Well, go to YouTube. sign into your Google account, then go to PewDiePie and press subscribe. Really? Huh.
I don't know what my password is.
Oh, okay. Fucking heathenist traitors. Subscribe to PewDiePie. 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 God, I need some water. Ugh. Subscribe to PewDiePie. 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 Actually, you know what? We're gonna have a quick break. I need to go grab some water, and then after that, we will have much more subscribing to PewDiePie to go. So I'll see you after this little break. Ah, bollocks. Oh shit, my computer's about to shut down. We don't want that. Also, my camera isn't about to shut down because reasons. It's fucking battery life, yeah. But regardless, let's put these back in. Okay, we're gonna put this back on. UN. Right. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. 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 Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Whoa, what is this? Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe. Hold up. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Okay. Well, anyway, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. 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 Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Holy shit, subscribe to PewDiePie. 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 Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe PewDiePie, subscribe to 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 PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 what? Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Okay then, well, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, fuck that. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Now, I'm gonna take a break just for a little bit. I'm gonna have a drink and shit. I'll be right back. This time I'm not gonna rip you out. Now, I'm quite concerned for the battery life of this phone, so we're going to have a quick interruption, and you'll see me back in just a little bit. Meaning, right now. Oh, bollocks, just hit my mic. Alright, so, back to the video. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 this game is better than Fortnite, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 bollocks. Okay, then subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 Subscribe to PewDiePie. 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 Where we at? Subscribe to PewDiePie. 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 Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. I don't know, there's some people talking in the fucking game chat. Okay. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. That's some bullshit right there. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe. No, good job. Yeah, no, this cunt's definitely hacking. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Haha, dickhead! Subscribe to PewDiePie. Right. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Ah, fuck. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh, dickhead thing. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh shit, okay, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh shit, I'm on terrorist now. Okay then. Alright. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 Oh, dickhead. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to... Shut the fuck up! Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh, for fuck's sake, fuck off! Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. I keep trying to press escape, but I keep on fucking pressing that. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. PewDiePie, subscribe to 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 PewDiePie. Oh, dickhead. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. What the fuck are you doing? Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. 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 No, they aren't. Okay. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh, good job, man. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to Jesus fucking Christ. Right, okay then. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 you fucking dumbass. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Ah, bollocks. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 oh, bull fucking shit, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 fuckers, aren't they? Oh well, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe, shut the fuck up, Dr. Phil, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Fuckers, aren't they? You know, just get stuck on a piece of fucking geometry because we're fucking good game designers. Okay. Well, I don't want this. What the fuck? Bought the wrong gun. Yeah, I hope these guys feel really accomplished fucking spawn camping. Okay, where the fuck was the invincibility of that? Oh, fucking subscribe to PewDiePie, you piece of shit. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Thank fuck, that gave me cancer. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. What the fuck? It's 7 health. Oh well. And subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Okay, what the fuck? I was aiming directly at him for all 4 of those fucking shots, but none of them hit. Whatever. Okay, fucking subscribe. This shit is getting me salty now. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 this fucking pussy. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. What? I'm the most. Oh, okay. Okay, what the fuck am I supposed to do, huh? When I shoot and my bullets just straight up don't fucking hit him, when I'm aiming at him, what the fuck do I do? No, just crouching, it makes your gun more accurate. That's not the point. My gun should be accurate fucking regardless. Ugh, fucking CSGO. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Fucking. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh, okay, so when he fucking moves, his gun is dead accurate, but when I fucking move, nah, I'm gonna be shitting to fucking Jupiter and Pluto at the fucking rate I'm going. Fucking bullshit game. Anyway, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh, you fucking kidding me. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh yeah, nah, enough of this. Right, what are we at? 50 minutes, okay, it's been an hour. Well, I guess I could just finish off with fucking editing this video while saying subscribe to PewDiePie. Cool. Okay, so subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Was this even? Nope, I didn't think so. Alright, delete. Subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. No, this one isn't it either. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. Wait, they're all fucking copy. What? Okay, you two can go commit die. Okay. So we had this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay, well, let's get... Okay, now let's go here. Let's... Oh, fucking God. Okay, you piss off, and you piss off. Alright, now you download. Okay. You download. Okay. You download. You download. And you download. And if any of yous don't fucking subscribe to PewDiePie, you're gonna be fucking not happy. Speaking of which, subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, 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 subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to PewDiePie, subscribe to PewDiePie. It's a fucking 10 or 17. I could be doing some fun shit right now. Okay. I don't fucking care. What? Okay, then, never mind. Yeah, let's go with this. Subscribe to PewDiePie. No, actually, no, the video's done. Okay, it's over an hour. You've got your fucking daily dose of internet. So, fuck off. Okay? Actually, no, subscribe to PewDiePie and me, but fuck off.